Hello everyone. Today we're going to talk about integumentary system that involves skin, hair, nails, and exocrine glands. We expect from you that you understand how integumentary system is structured, followed by the functions that they perform. So to start with, integument is taken from Latin that means covering. Generally, it indicates a protective layer in an animal or plant, and it is mostly found in the coverings of organs, or it can be fascia of muscles or peritoneum of abdominal organs. So the integumentary system, consists of four uh, uh, types of human body. That is skin, hair, nails, and exocrine glands. And overall, they all form as a barrier for protection against different physical, chemical, and infectious factors. And exocrine glands, as we already covered from the previous lectures, are those type of glands that secrete substance to the surface. And we have exocrine glands sitting in the hair, in skin, and all they play a role in the regulation of temperature and to detoxify the organism. In case someone gets a flu or a cold, it's better to stay home and warm, drink very warm liquid so that we have more sweat production that has a very specific role in order to detoxify organism from the production of viral particles, um, and also to decrease the temperature. So these are the roles of exocrine glands, and specifically the sweat glands, which we have under the skin. So the integumentary system is also highly innervated, meaning that it has body sensory of temperature, pain, touch, movement. So it's highly linked to the neural part. And mammary glands in mammals plays a big role for the survival of the species. And it's also a type of exocrine glands. So some pictures to show you. This is how your nail is structured. So here you have the root of nail. From here you start to have your nails growing to this part, and this is the keratinized part. It's called nail body, and we call it also as a nail plate. And here you have mammary gland structure, which are composed of lobules. These are round-shaped parts, and each lobule contain hollow alveoli. Those are these embedded into the lobule, and these alveoli are surrounded by myoepithelial cells and lined with these cuboidal cells. And each alveoli has lactiferous duct that delivers milk into the nipple. And this is the structure of skin, and skin contains different layers starting from epidermis, followed by dermis, and the third is the hypodermis. So as you can see on the surface of skin, you can have pore, uh, pores for the secretion of sweat as a result of sweat duct by the sweat glands, and the hair follicles here coming to give the rise of hair shafts on the surface. So now let's talk about the first type of integumentary system, that is skin. To start with, I would like to tell that skin is the largest organ of human. So skin is an organ that can have a surface area up to 2 square meters, and it contains all the four types of tissues: epithelial, connective, neural, and muscle tissues. And we can have two different types of it, like hairy and hairless skin in different parts of our body. And skin can be differentiated by its color, oiliness, and dryness. So also it accounts for about 15% of our body weight, and it serves as a protection of our internal body system from the external factors. And based on the color of our skin, we can have either we can have different complexion. So fairer skin colored people are more prone to the damaging UV light. So that will definitely cause the rapid aging as people who have fair complexion, they are more efficient in vitamin D production when they are living in some areas where we have low sunlight. Regarding the structure, it has three layers, so which are epidermis, dermis, and hypodermis. Epidermis contains the keratinized cell layers, which are dead, and all layers of epidermis have cells called keratinocytes. And epidermis is multiple layers of the cells. And keratinocytes manufacture and stores keratin protein. And as you might already know, that keratin protein um, gives forms the structure of hair, nails, skin, and it gives the skin the waterproof properties. And the topmost layer of skin, keratinocytes are dead, and they are regularly shed away and replaced by cells from the deeper layers. And we also have melanocytes sitting in epidermis. So those are the type of cells that produce melanin pigment, and it gives our hair and skin a color, and it protects us from the UV damage. Also, once the person has a pink hue in the lighter skinned individuals, this is due to the oxygenated hemoglobin. We can also have cells, immune cells in the epidermis, which fight with bacteria and foreign particles. And why skin is waterproof? This is all due to the keratinocytes that produce water repelling glycolipid that prevent water loss from the body, making the skin waterproof. Okay, so this is due to the water repelling glycolipids that are produced by keratinocytes. So we also have uh, the epidermis as a layer that is always exposed to the outside environment. And just remember that the dry and dead layer helps prevent the penetration of microbes and dehydration of underlying tissue here. So this epidermis serves as a protection from the external environment to protect all the underlying tissues which are lying here. So it provides both mechanical protection, and it also provides protection against microbes in a way that these cells, the very topmost layer, are always sloughed away and replaced by the cells pushed up from here. And also have microdermabrasion procedure in cosmetic industry, which help remove the dry upper layer to keep the skin looking fresh and healthy. And regarding the thickness of epidermis, our skin can be either thick or thin. And most of our skin is thin, consisting of four layers of keratinocytes. And these are the four layers, that is stratum basal, stratum spinosum, granulosum, stratum corneum. So you don't have to remember the names of these layers, but just to show you that thin skin contains these one, two, three, four layers. in epidermis, whereas in thick skin you have one, two, three, four, five layers. So therefore it's called thick skin, and we can find thin skin in most of our body parts, and thin skin normally contains hair, whereas thick skin it's found in our soles of our feet and also the palms in our hand, and it is hairless. So, and normally it does not contain any pigments, whereas thin skin contains the pigments. And we covered during our last lecture that epidermis can consist of stratified squamous epithelium, that is multi-layered level of epithelial cells. So now let's move on to the second part of skin that is lying below the epidermis, and it's called dermis. And dermis is linked to the basement membrane, which serve as a structural support and represented by the connective tissue. It contains all the receptors because we have here we have a concentration of nerve endings there, and it contains hair follicles, the glands for sweat production, sebaceous glands for the oil production, apocrine glands for the odor, the sweat which has some odor, lymphatic vessels and blood vessels. It is completely vascular, so it is innervated and has the it is highly vascular, whereas epidermis was completely avascular, that did not have any blood supply there, and epidermis was nourishing its cells from the underlying parts of the skin. So that is from the dermis. And yes, dermis provides all the nutrients and oxygen. It removes CO2, so it's a very key part of skin that regulates all this. And we can divide in terms of structure dermis into two parts, that is papillary region, that is thin, and reticular region, that is thick. So this thin region are composed of also connective tissues, and we can have these loose areolar connective tissues in our fingers, palms, toes, and these are actually forms the part of our biometric data, because we have here person unique contours. So that is regarding the papillary region, whereas in reticular region, that is thick, we have dense irregular connective tissue that gives the properties of tensile strength, elasticity, and being to be stretched. And people who have tattoos, the ink needs to be held in dermis so that it is not washed away, and it stays there for many years. And those tattoos that you get not for a permanent basis. They are normally the ink does not enter the dermis part. It stays on the epidermis part, and it gets shed away with the dead keratinocytes, which gets replenished on a constant basis. That's why the tattoo, the temporary tattoo, cannot be held forever. And the third part that is below the dermis is called hypodermis. Its primary function is to be able to keep all the parts, that is dermis and epidermis, to the underlying bones and muscles. So it has also a very critical function to keep the above structures connected to the underlying tissues. It supplies dermis with blood vessels and nerves, and contains loose connective tissue. If you remember from the last lectures, loose connective tissue has largely spaced elastin fibers, and it has also collagen fibers there, but the main reason is that it has loosely situated elastin fibers. And it has also adipose tissue, where we have fat cells and elastin, fibroblasts that secrete ground substance and fibers, macrophages, which are immune cells that protect us from the invaders. So, and we have 50% of our body fat that is concentrated in the subcutaneous tissue. So we have very diverse functions of skin, but the very first one is the protection. So our skin is an organ that protect us from physical, chemical, or infectious agents damage. What is happening is that we have sweats which are produced by the sweat glands, and they contain specific enzyme called lysozyme. And you have also lysozyme in your tears, and this lysozyme is very efficient in breaking down the bacterial cell wall. So if you remember when we did the gram staining, it was the critical part to have to distinguish the bacteria into gram positive and into gram negative regarding the bacterial cell wall. Yeah, so if the bacterial cell wall is disintegrated, the bacteria will just die. So this lysozyme can break the bacterial cell wall, thereby neutralizing its infectious damage. And also we have sebaceous glands that secrete oils to neutralize chemicals that are put onto the surface of our skin. And the secreted oils and sweat onto the surface of skin helps to keep our skin moist. So this is to also allow not to lose the water. And our skin is also responsible for the thermoregulation by either reducing or increasing sweating. Just imagine when the person has a fever, he needs um, to have more perspiration, and when the person undergoes the perspiration, the body temperature decreases and the patient feels relieved. How it happens? It's all because of the blood vessels that come to the near surface of the skin, and they get enlarged. We call it vasodilation. And once they come in a very concentrated portions to the surface of the skin, we have most of the body heat released to the outer surface, and this is called as regulating the internal body temperature by cooling it down. So, for instance, if you go outside and it's cold, we have vasoconstriction. That means that the blood vessels become very, very narrowed in a way not to uh, not to have the internal heat going to the outer surface. So this way we keep our body heat inside through the process of vasoconstriction. So that's why our skin is a key player in the body temperature regulation. So once you sleep, what always happens is that the body temperature can also increase for by 1 degree, and it's all because we have different metabolic and physical processes happening in our body that generate the heat, and our skin is really important in regulating it so that we have the 37 degrees temperature, not more than that and not less than that. Another key function of skin is sensation, because we have lots of nerve endings concentrated in the dermis and the hypodermis. The skin acts as a huge sensor of the body. It gets most of the information from outside to carry out to the underlying tissues and to react accordingly. One of the example of sensation is a formation of goosebumps on your skin. So when the temperature is cold, what happens is that we can form some goosebumps, and it's actually the uh, tiny muscles which are lying under the hair shafts on the skin. So those will start to erect the hair shaft so that the hair still stands still, and to trap the heat. And for instance, in animals, this is more important because animals have their more hair, and the birds have feather. And once it's really cold, the hair on the surface serve as a insulation in a way that it stays straight to trap the heat. And since in human we don't have that much hair, we form these goosebumps. So this is can be exemplified as a result of sensation. And also with skin, we can feel pain and some touch and some injuries very rapidly due to the nerve endings which are responsible to conduct the message upon receiving on the receptors on the surface of skin. And another key function of skin is immune response, because we are always exposed to some damages from the environment based on they can be also pathogenic microorganisms invading our skin. So our skin is already adapted to withstand those damages in a way that it has Langerhans cells. They kill the pathogens, and what they do is that they take the proteins obtained from these pathogens and they represent them to immune cells, which are lymphocytes, in order to trigger the immune response by having temperature, and also to kill those cells and to always be ready for the secondary encounter with that particular microorganism. And our skin synthesizes vitamin D. Vitamin D is essential for the calcium absorption, and we have vitamin D being synthesized in certain parts of our skin, and our skin stores both folate and vitamin D. And just to let you know that we have different types of bacteria sitting on our skin, and we have very good bacteria or beneficial bacteria, which are our friends, who help to withstand the bad effect of pathogens that can be growing there. So when we have the good balance of beneficial bacteria sitting on our skin surface, then we are much more or less protected from the damaging effect of pathogenic organisms, which are bad friends of our skin. And skin also acts as a water resistant. Why? Because just imagine on a daily basis we wash our hands for so many times, and if our skin is not waterproof, what would happen? It would be a big problem. So how skin has its feature to be waterproof? It's all so our skin is waterproof due to the keratinocytes that produce water-repelling glycolipid, and it prevents water loss from the body, making lending this feature for the skin to be waterproof. And next, it's the excretion and absorption. So, sweat is an example of how we can get rid of any harmful substances, toxins, and drugs. So, with the sweat, we do not only uh, bring back our internal body temperature to normal, but also we get released from many different unwanted substances from our body. So it's also another reason why you need to drink lots of fluid, warm fluid, once you get a viral infection, is because the viruses, they start to multiply in your cells, and they will leads to the cell lysis, and these viral particles are very toxic to our body, and immune system senses that. And what we can do is that by drinking lots of water, we are helping our body to get to have more of the perspiration going on and to release these unwanted toxic substances. So we're helping our immune system. And as we said, that skin has a surface area of 2 square meters, and just imagine that it acts as a big absorption surface area for many drugs and poisons. And our skin gets its oxygen exclusively from the air. Why? Because it lacks the vascular, it lacks the blood supply. Yeah, so it is completely avascular part of the skin, the epidermis, and there is a big distance between the outer layer and the base membrane. Therefore, uh, the surface of the skin takes its oxygen from the external environment. And other function is that once we have a radiant, healthy skin, it gives us aesthetic value. And we can also show our emotions by being shy, and that will give these blushes on our cheeks, or once the person gets angry, or there will be more of the uh, blood coming to the surface of the area, yeah, to the surface of the skin, and that would give also the red color. So so let's talk about the color. We have different complexion in people worldwide. 80% of people in the world have pigments in their skin, and we can see here that we start with the pale skin going to the dark skin, and you can see different tones of complexion in the world population. So what determines the skin color? It determines those are the different types of pigments that determine our skin color, which are melanin, melanoid, keratin, and hemoglobin. Melanin is a pigment that is produced by the cells called melanocytes, which are found in the basal layer of the epidermis, and it has a brown color. So, for instance, when you have a suntan or you go to a tanning salon, you stimulate the production of melanin in uh, by keratinocytes. So the production of this melanin gives this darker tanned color. Melanoid also resembles melanin, and it's also present in the epidermis. Keratin, as we covered in our biotechnology lectures, it's present in it has a yellow to orange color, as it's present in carrots, and hemoglobin, it has a that is found in blood. It has purple color. So once we have oxyhemoglobin, that develops a red color, and they all um, give the pigmentation in our skin. So what is really important about melanin? Melanin, it acts as a protection against the UV light. We know that UV light is really harmful for our skin as it damages DNA, and extensive exposure to UV light can cause skin cancer. And therefore, we need to protect our body once we go with clothing or with the creams. And if you have lots of melanin in your skin, you are more or less protected from the UV light. And when there is intense concentration of melanin, there is a low production of vitamin D. And interestingly, that's why the sun tanning is not a permanent process. It's all because the melanosome, those are the temporary structures, will be joining with the lysosomes, and they will get destroyed. Therefore, the tanning effect will not stay forever, and it will be only temporary. And if you are pale skinned, you can get very quickly a sunburn compared to the dark skinned people who are mostly protected from the direct sunlight exposure. So let's talk about how we have the process of wound healing. It's all about the severity of the damage onto skin. If the damage is superficial, which did not involve the structural support that is basement membrane, then the wound will repair itself very quickly with no any scars left. And we know that the skin is made of stratified epithelial tissue, which can replenish, which are the stem cells, and they can proliferate and replenish, and you will have quickly the replenishment of the skin. However, if the wound has a deeper damage that is below the epidermis, and unfortunately in that case the scar tissue will surround the place of the wound and it will stay there permanent. And this scar tissue is a type of connective tissue that is avascular, but it's innervated. That means that you can touch and you can feel the touch, pain there, and also the temperature, and it can also have the pigment. So let's now move on to the other types of integumentary system that involves hair and nails. So structurally, hair is a keratinous filament that grows out of epidermis. It is made of dead and keratinized cells. That's why you don't feel any pain when your hair gets cut or when you shave off. You don't see any damage because those cells are completely dead and they are keratinized. The hair originates from the hair follicle, and the hair shaft, it's a hair exposed at the skin surface and it's visible with the naked eye, whereas we cannot see the hair root, which is hidden into the follicle and lies below the skin surface. The hair contains three different parts, that is medulla, cortex, and cuticle. Medulla is the central core of the hair. It is surrounded by the cortex. Cortex is a layer of compressed keratinized cells, and cortex itself is surrounded by the cuticle. And cortex is covered by a very hard cells. Those are cuticles. So hair growth begins with the production of keratinocytes in the hair bulb, and also hair gets its color from the melanin that will be discussed in the next slide. And what is really important for you to remember is that we have the follicle, which is located in the dermis, and it contains the stem cells. They always participate in the recreation of the skin after wounds. And how the hair grows? Hair growth starts from the hair bulb that is below the epidermis. So from there, it starts to grow, the basal cells start to proliferate, and we start to have keratinization that would result in a hair shaft that is visible by our eyes. And regarding the texture and the color, different hair color results from differences in melanin type. So our hair color is genetically determined, and we have two different melanin pigments like eumelanin and pheomelanin. And though blonde hair people, they do have very little pigmentation, and that's why they have a very pale, um, pale color of their hair. And also, as person ages, melanin tend to decrease, and the hair starts to lose its color and becomes gray and white. And regarding the texture of hair, it is determined by the shape and the structure of the cortex. So cortex is here, yeah, that surrounds the medulla. So depending on the cortex, we can have wavy, curly, or coiled shape of hair. So the follicle shape determines the cortex shape, which is in its turn dictates how straight or curly the hair would be. And people with straight hair, as you can see on the bottom, they have round fibers, whereas those who have wavy or curly hair, they have uh, other or shaped fibers, or they can be oval shaped fibers. Hair serves multiple functions. It can serve as sensory input, protection, thermoregulation, and communication. For instance, hair on our head protects the skull from the sun, and hair in nose and ears and in eyelashes, they defend our body by trapping and excluding any dust particles or allergens that may contain. So hair is also extremely sensitive to air movement and also to the movement of some insects uh, and other disturbances in the environment are really sensed by the hair more than the skin. So we also have our eyebrows that prevent any sweat coming from the head so that the damaging effect of the sweat is prevented from getting into our eye. So hair serves a key function of protecting the surfaces of our eyes and also as an immune to protect our respiratory tract from having the dust, pollen, allergen, and this hair protect so that these particles are trapped and not go down the respiratory passage. What about the insulation? We have also covered this part as we can have these goosebumps and um, that is the result of the tiny muscles that allow the hair to stand straight. And you can also think of a cat that gets once it gets frightened, it will have its hair also standing still. They are all because each hair follicle is innervated. They have nerve supply there, nerve endings, and mostly the insulation purpose by hair is to trap the air and to have a layer of air so that it will keep the body temperature. Let's move on to the uh, nails, which is also a part of the integumentary system, and it's a horn-like keratinous plate that we can find at the tip of our fingers and toes. And the major part of it, it's called matrix unguis or onychostroma, that determines the size, thickness, and length of our nails. And it produces cells that form the nail plate, which is here, the nail plate that you have. The nail body forms at the nail root that has a matrix of proliferating cells, and that's why we always have a continual growth of nails due to the nail body. Let's move on to the exocrine glands. Those are the type of glands that secrete substances onto the surface, and they are derivatives of epithelium, as we mentioned in our past lecture. There are two types of sweat glands called eccrine and apocrine. So eccrine directly excretes sweat onto the skin surface, and the sweat contains water and some excess of wastes and some salts, and it serves to cool the body. And whereas apocrine, it's mostly found in parts of the body where there is some hair, and we can find apocrine sweat glands in genital part and also under the armpits. And why it's a bit specific is that it has some odor. The odor uh, is due to the constituents of the sweat that contains large proteins or organic substances that the bacteria can grow on it, and that's why we have this smell. And also, this smell is actually uh, as a result of bacterial growth there, and they once they start to feed on those nutritious substances that contains this sweat by the apocrine glands, we have the smell. And also, apocrine glands produce pheromone-like compound, and animals use it to attract for the offspring generation. And also, dogs can feel the smell of the human by the sweat generated in the apocrine glands. So oil and wax is generated by exocrine glands, and we can find the sebaceous glands near the formation of hair that secretes the oil to the surface of the skin, yeah, and on in our faces or in the skin of our head. And these sebaceous glands, um, their main function is to produce waxy matter in order to lubricate the skin, so that the exfoliation and friction is reduced significantly. And we have sebaceous gland absolutely absent in our palms and soles of the feet, whereas they are mostly found in our face and the scalp. And exocrine glands found in the external auditory canal, they serve to produce the earwax in order to protect the external auditory canal. And this cerumen or earwax keeps the eardrum waterproof, and it prevents the bacterial growth there, so by trapping dust, fibers, and hair. So this is another type of exocrine glands that we can find in our ear. Let's move on with the exocrine glands, that is mammary glands. We initially showed you picture and structure, how it looks like. So it produces milk as soon as the baby is born. So the structural units includes the alveoli and also the lobules, and each lobule secrete milk into the duct and allow them a nipple to be filled with milk to continue the breastfeeding. And mammary gland, it's protected by the skin, and as you can also see here, the adipose tissues that contains the adipocytes, fat cells, uh, and it is suspended over the chest muscles and ribs. So regarding the evolution of mammary glands, it was told that it might have been originated from apocrine sweat or sebaceous glands, because the apocrine sweat is really high nutritious. So also it was thought that it might appear in reptiles, as their glands were also nutrient-rich sweat that allowed their eggs and fin shells to stay moisturized. And also some structures which are closely related to mammary glands are found in other animals like birds, spiders, and fish. And interestingly, if there is a reduction in milk-like matter in offspring diet, that could cause either a reduction in survival or could lead to complete mortality. So this is all for today. Thank you for your attention.